Okay, welcome to another edition of Real Estate Investor Talk, and I'm sitting with Dolf. Dolf, we've just been on this fantastic South African tour. We're sitting in Windhoek, Namibia right now.
Right.
So give us a sort of your take on where the world markets are economy-wise, because we've heard that in some countries not so good, China, Greece, all that kind of stuff. But more importantly, give us your perspective of real estate.
Oh gosh, well that's a broad question. We could talk all day about that.
Right.
And look, on the surface it appears as though economies are in turmoil, and they are. Look at what's happening in Greece. I mean, it's essentially bankrupt. China has devalued, I think, about 1.9%, but there's been a flow-on effect. Their share market has gone way down. Others would argue that it was overheated, and it's a correction that's sorely overdue. And then there is other turmoil going on. Even in South Africa, while I've been here, the currency's gone down about 10%, which is atrocious. In fact, I think for the first time it hit 14 Rand to the dollar, which is about as low as it's gone.
Yeah.
But rather than watch the news minute by minute and panic whenever something happens, I think we have to stand back and look at longer term trends. One of the things I always have said that I like about real estate is it's a very long-term proposition. You buy a property, you put the title to it or the ownership papers in a bottom drawer, keep them with the bank, or it's all electronic now anyway. And you don't worry about it for 5 years and then see what it's selling. Chances are 5 years later it would have done spectacularly well. Neale, if you'd bought just before the crash that started around 2008, it varies a bit depending on where.
Yeah.
If you'd bought just at that peak, then 3 years later you would have been down on your investment. That's true. But if you look at the history of mankind, basically, recorded history, the last 200 years, there hasn't been a linear and monotonic rise in property values. It's gone up and down. But the general trend, when you look at the 10-year average, has usually always been that at the end of any 10-year period, prices have always been higher than at the beginning. And that's for real estate across the board. The only time that real estate disappears is when it's lost through an earthquake, for instance, or floods or pestilence. Well, usually you have insurance against that, or it's if it's torn down to be replaced by a new building, then the developer has taken account of that into his development price. So it's not as if real estate disappears, and I highlight that because when you look at companies on the share market, Neale, even if you go back 20 years, half the companies that were there are no longer around. Montgomery Ward, Enron, Compaq Computers, I know they've been merged and bought back, but some have just been shut down. And so sometimes companies which thrive in an industry like telegraphs or telex machines and then fax machines, they make millions of money in one economy, and then before you know it, they've disappeared because they've been replaced by something new. Whereas all of those companies operated out of premises. Now you could argue that these days people need smaller and smaller premises because of efficiencies and economies of scale, but real estate is still in demand. So it's kind of a way of answering your question. Real estate in general, despite all the ups and downs in Greece and China that we've experienced, I think in a year's time our memory of what would have happened in China will be a blip on the landscape. China has a population that's still huge. It's anywhere from 1.3 to 1.4 billion, depending on whom you believe. And the number of people reaching the ranks of the middle class is swelling at an enormous rate. The amount of money that is leaving China for investment abroad is going up exponentially. I think you'd be foolish to say, wow, China has a bad correction, they're going to go down the gurgler, so to speak, let's pull out. I think that would be a wrong move.